The True Believer, Thoughts on the Nature of Mass Movement by Eric Hoffer, Section 57, page 80. The effectiveness of a doctrine does not come from its meaning but from its certitude. No doctrine, however profound and sublime, will be effective unless it is presented as the embodiment of the one and only truth. It must be the one word from which all things are and all things speak. Crude absurdities, trivial nonsense, and sublime truths are equally potent in readying people for self-sacrifice if they are accepted as the sole eternal truth. It is obvious, therefore, that in order to be effective, a doctrine must not be understood, but has rather to be believed in. We can be absolutely certain only about things we do not understand. A doctrine that is understood is shorn of its strength. Once we understand a thing, it is as if it had originated in us. And clearly, those who are asked to renounce the self and sacrifice, it cannot see eternal certitude in anything which originates in that self. The fact that they understand a thing fully impairs its validity and certitude in their eyes. The devout are always urged to seek the absolute truth with their hearts and not their minds. Quote, "It is the heart which is conscious of God, not the reason." End quote. Rudolf Hess, when swearing in the entire Nazi Party in 1934, exhorted his hearers, quote, "Do not seek Adolf Hitler with your brains. All of you will find him with the strength of your hearts." End quote. When a movement begins to rationalize its doctrine and make it intelligible, it is a sign that its dynamic span is over, that it is primarily interested in stability. For, as will be shown later, section 106, the stability of a regime requires the allegiance of the intellectuals, and it is to win them rather than to foster self-sacrifice in the masses that a doctrine is made intelligible. If a doctrine is not intelligible, it has to be vague. And if neither unintelligible nor vague, it has to be unverifiable. One has to get to heaven or the distant future to determine the truth of an effective doctrine. When some part of a doctrine is relatively simple, there is a tendency among the faithful to complicate and obscure it. Simple words are made pregnant with meaning and made to look like symbols in a secret message. There is thus an illiterate air about the most literate true believer. He seems to use words as if he were ignorant of their true meaning. Hence, too, his taste for quibbling, hair-splitting, and scholastic tortuousness. Section 58. To be in possession of an absolute truth is to have a net of familiarity spread over the whole of eternity. There are no surprises and no unknowns. All questions have already been answered, all decisions made, all eventualities foreseen. The true believer is without wonder and hesitation. Quote, "Who knows Jesus knows the reason of all things." End quote. The true doctrine is a master key to all the world's problems. With it, the world can be taken apart and put together. The official history of the Communist Party states, quote, "The power of Marxist-Leninist theory lies in the fact that it enables the party to find the right orientation in any situation, to understand the interconnection of current events, to foresee their course, and to perceive not only how and in what direction they are developing in the present, but how and in what direction they are bound to develop in the future." End quote. The true believer is emboldened to attempt the unprecedented and the impossible, not only because his doctrine gives him a sense of omnipotence, but also because it gives him unqualified confidence in the future. See section 4. An active mass movement rejects the present and centers its interest on the future. It is from this attitude that it derives its strength, for it can proceed recklessly with the present, with the health, wealth, and lives of its followers. But it must act as if it had already read the book of the future to the last word. Its doctrine is proclaimed as a key to that book. Section 59. Are the frustrated more easily indoctrinated than the non-frustrated? Are they more credulous? Pascal was of the opinion that, quote, one was well-minded to understand Holy Writ when one hated oneself, end quote. There is apparently some connection between dissatisfaction with oneself and a proneness to credulity. The urge to escape our real self is also an urge to escape the rational and the obvious. The refusal to see ourselves as we are develops a distaste for facts and cold logic. There is no hope for the frustrated in the actual and the possible. Salvation can come to them only from the miraculous, which seeps through a crack in the iron wall of inexorable reality. They ask to be deceived. What Stresemann said of the Germans is true of the frustrated in general. Quote, they pray not only for their daily bread, but also for their daily illusion. End quote. The rule seems to be that those who find no difficulty in deceiving themselves are easily deceived by others. They are easily persuaded and led. A peculiar side of the credulity is that it is often joined with a proneness to imposture. The association of believing and lying is not characteristic solely of children. The inability or unwillingness to see things as they are promotes both gullibility and charlatanism.